Welcome back. I'm glad you're here. Let's heal together.
I'm gonna hand you a hot butter biscuit. As a matter of fact, I think I'm gonna stand back and toss it to you because I don't want to be too close when you get this hot butter biscuit. Boys, don't get pregnant. That's my hot butter biscuit. And the reason I call it my hot butter biscuit because you get a lot of flack sometimes when you say boys don't get pregnant. It's a biological fact though. Sometimes the young ladies will get upset with me. Well, they just as responsible. They're just as... Okay, I understand that. You're right, they are just as responsible. But you know what? It didn't play out like that. So come on, I'm glad you're here. Let's heal together. Boys, don't get pregnant. That's an uncomfortable truth. We often avoid saying it out loud. But even though, as I said, it shouldn't be this way, girls must take greater care than boys when engaging in sex. Not because girls are more irresponsible, not because girls are more sexual, but because the consequences do not land equally. They just don't, young ladies. And because of the biological reality that boys don't get pregnant, the social, emotional, physical, and lifelong consequences fall disproportionately on girls and women, even when both male and female participated in the sex act. A boy can walk away, brag about it, or whatever. But he can just walk away if he chooses to. A girl can walk away with a lifetime of responsibility. Shame is gendered. A lot of shame, even in 2020, well, it's 2026 now, but it was this way in 2025, so I'm sure it's going to be this way in 2026. Shame, a lot of times, is heaped up on the girl, not the boy. As a matter of fact, quite the opposite. There are times when the boy is treated like a stud, a big shot. You got your nut pregnant dog. But girls are often labeled fast, irresponsible, loose, or ruined. They used to say girls were ruined once they got pregnant. They had a baby out of wedlock. And no man gonna want her. While boys are praised, excused, or as I said, celebrated as studs. Consequences of pregnancy are not shared equally. Pregnancy alters a girl's body. Pregnancy sometimes alters the girl's health, her future, her education. The girl carries the child. The girl is expected to be a mother. Her family often absorbs the financial, emotional, and logistical burden of her getting pregnant when she engaged with a boy, because boys don't get pregnant. Girls carry the physical risk of pregnancy, the health risk, the social judgment, the interrupted life, education, different things, and the long-term caregiving role. Because for the boys, responsibility is oftentimes treated like an option, or maybe he's being charitable. Because I've heard people say, if a boy contributes financially, you know what they'll say? He's doing the right thing, or he's doing the honorable thing. But when a girl raised a child, you know what they say? Well, that's what she's supposed to do. She's the mama. That's the difference there. Boys don't get pregnant, and boys are treated differently when they impregnate a girl as opposed to how the girl is treated who was impregnated by the boy. Those are just facts. I'm not saying they're fair. It's not about shaming anybody. It's not about trying to make the boys look bad. I'm stating facts. The only way we're going to deal with these issues is if we decide we're going to talk about it and see what we can do. Not just talk, because you know we're good about talking about stuff. But we got to talk to make changes. Communities sometimes protect the boys. Families do. They send the boys. I don't know if they still do it, but I know a long time ago that they would send their boy to live with the granddad or somebody who lives in another state or whatever to get him away from the girl because they didn't want him to take responsibility. I know cases where mothers would get upset, mad, because the girl wanted the boy to pay child support. And funny, because she's a woman herself. And you know what, though, in all probability, she went through the same thing. Because these are learned behaviors. They preserve the boy's reputation. They don't call him all kind of names. They minimize his role in the pregnancy act, where the sexual act that led to pregnancy. They protect his future. He got a football scholarship. Ain't no girl gonna mess him up. So yes, young ladies, sex is a shared decision. The consequences are not shared equally. And this means girls must often be more cautious. Girls have to think further ahead. And no, as I said, it's not fair. But young ladies, the cost to you is higher. The truth is not victim blaming. And the reason I throw victim in, I don't think that there's any victims here. But it seems like now everything happens, somebody's a victim. So I'm just throwing that in. But I'm throwing it back out by letting you know there are no victims here, only volunteers. So, as I said, the truth is not about victim blaming. It is self-preservation in an unequal system. And young ladies, until society holds the boy equally accountable, remove the stigma from the girls, shares parenting and consequences fairly. And now, these are things that can happen, but listen, even if these things were removed, young ladies, you still need to understand boys don't get pregnant. If you decide, I'm not going to have sex for right now, or I'm going to have sex, but I'm going to be more protective of myself, that's not a weakness, that's a strength. You keep that in mind. And this isn't about hating boys. So hopefully we won't put our emotions in this. It's not about hating boys. It's about telling the truth. Accountability without consequences, that's a performance. Responsibility without risk is incomplete. And until boys are raised with the same level of sexual accountability, social consequences, and moral expectations, girls will continue to carry a burden they did not create alone. Boys don't get pregnant. And you know, I've actually seen girls, and you know, I've actually heard girls say that they weren't going to use protection because he just as responsible as me. He can do this or he can do that. Young ladies, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Sure, he's just as responsible. But if you're going to engage with him without him using a condom, what do you expect? You're still taking the responsibility. You're still the one who's in control of this situation, young ladies. And to not protect yourself because you're saying the boy's just as responsible, let me tell you something, young ladies. Let me put it this way to you. That's not a good thing. I'll leave it at that. That's not a good thing, okay? And here again, it's not about shame. It's not about blame. It's actually about power, patriarchy, and who society chooses to blame and punish. And you know what? Naming the truth, that's a part of breaking the cycle. Grateful rising. I'm so glad you're here. Let's heal together. I'm Lily Bell. Be encouraged.